It's been a long day, but we're happy to have you here. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're recapping Tuesday's action up next on the podcast. Jacob DeGoat is back. Let's talk about it. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, August 3rd. The whole gang is here. Frank Stampfl joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, Jacob deGrom made his season debut. Talk about that. Miguel Vargas was promoted by the Dodgers. Will he stick around? Not so sure. A few struggling elite talents that I want to talk about, and much more. But before we get into it, Chris, I noticed that you're in training camp now on Twitter. How long do you have you for?
Oh, I'll be around.
Nice.
I'll be around. You know, I'm doing the FFT newsletter 5 times a day. Subscribe cbssports.com/newsletter/fantasy-football-today.
5 times a day?
5 times a week. 5 times a day would be a lot. I write a lot and I write really fast, but not that fast. That would be pretty exhausting.
All right.
And I feel like the spam filters would pick me up a lot more quickly. But I'm still keeping my eyes on, on baseball. I'm still here. You got me. I'm not going away anytime too soon, hopefully.
That's good. I want to make sure that you're sticking around. So we've got Chris for the next month or so before football starts. Of course, if you do play fantasy football, make sure you subscribe to Chris's newsletter. All right. Before we get into oh my goodness gracious from Tuesday, let's just start off with Jacob deGrom, who had a successful debut at the Nationals. 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 6 strikeouts to 0 walks, 13 swinging strikes on 59 pitches. That is a 22% swinging strike rate. So just more of the same. 7 whiffs on the slider, 5 on the fastball. He averaged 99.7 miles per hour on his fastball in this start. He looked a lot like Jacob deGrom. The pitch mix basically on par with last year. Scott, I don't know that there's much to take away from this start. It's just, can he stay healthy? He made it through his first start, so I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, can he stay healthy is a major question. It was a usage injury, that stress fracture in his shoulder prior to the season. And so I don't love to see that his velocity was up again from last year here in his first start back. His fastball peaked at 101.6 miles per hour, which is great. I love a 101.6 mile per hour fastball as much as the next guy, but I know from deGrom's history, he was still the best pitcher in baseball when he was peaking at 98. So I'd rather him pitch in a way, I don't know that all the added velocity is good for him staying on the mound. And that's what I want to see most of all, is him on the mound. So, if you want to be disappointed in anything, I guess that's the thing. But of course, it's great that he's back. It's great that he dominated. He was facing a AAA lineup. The one that just lost Juan Soto and Josh Bell.
I will say I'm disappointed that we've been talking about Jacob deGrom for 90 seconds and nobody's made the Jacob deGrom was in midseason form, allowing 1 run as the Mets lost.
Yep.
True.
Yeah,
to that AAA lineup.
Classic Mets Jacob deGrom jokes.
Yeah,
you got him.
It's just more of the same. I don't have this stat in front of me, but I saw something on Twitter that he's 45 and 43 in however many of his last starts. The Mets are 45 and 43 in his last, I guess that would be 88 starts or something like that. So it's just crazy considering how amazing he is. Chris, we recently spoke about Jacob deGrom, and you said after you see him come away from his first start healthy, you'll move him, up around your top 12 starting pitchers. Do you plan to do that after this start?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we've said it 1,000 times this season, but it's so hard to rank a player like Jacob deGrom because when he's pitching, I don't think there's anyone better. I really I will take Jacob deGrom over any pitcher in baseball if I need one game. But seeing him pitch in one game doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be healthy enough to pitch the next game or the next 5 games, the next 10 or 12 or whatever the rest of the season would be. So it's impossible to know how to properly value him. I don't even know if it's impossible to know how to properly value him. It might just be impossible to value him because if you're willing to give up full value on Jacob deGrom, you're just taking on an incredible amount of risk. But if you trade Jacob deGrom and you're not getting full value for him, you're taking on an incredible amount of risk that you're going to lose that trade. So it's just, he's an impossible player to value. I know that's technically our jobs is to try to figure that out. I know, but we're not soothsayers. You know, we're not reading animal entrails and divining the future. I mean, Scott
Speak
might.
for yourself.
He's
Chris.
better at this than I am, so I don't know what his actual process is. Maybe I should ask. But
It involves a lot of entrails.
for me, I live a pretty entrail-free life, and that means that I don't know if Jacob deGrom's going to stay healthy for his next 10 starts. If he does, I think he'll be the best pitcher in baseball the rest of the way.
Look,
I think that's there's I don't know. It's a lot of words to say. I don't know.
we're all in agreement. We're all shrugging right now on the podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, I agree. Look, I said it before. I'll say it again. I like to play things safe. If someone approached me with, a top 12 to 15 starting pitcher right now, straight up for Jacob deGrom, someone who's healthy right now, I would do that trade just because.
Here's an interesting one: Max Fried or Jacob deGrom?
I would take Max Fried for Jacob deGrom right now.
Shane Bieber or Jacob deGrom?
I would take Shane Bieber.
Yeah, I have DeGrom 23rd. Entering this start, I had him 23rd. Just ahead of him are Julio Urias, Yu Darvish, Clayton Kershaw, and Shane Bieber. I have 19th. I don't know that I'm ready yet to move DeGrom ahead of any of those guys.
It's like we talked about in the preseason. It's not for me a question of is Jacob deGrom good. When he's on the mound, like as long as he's healthy enough to pitch in a major league game, I think he's going to be amazing. It's just should seeing him actually pitch in a major league game change anything? That's the question I can't answer.
Yeah, and I don't blame you there. So a couple different takes here. How if you have deGrom on your team, I guess figure out risk versus reward. Do you want to have potentially the SP1 or flip him for somebody a little bit safer? As I said, I would rather flip him right now. Let's get into the rest of Tuesday's action.
Oh my goodness gracious!
Oh my goodness gracious! A standout. What just happened? My Apple Watch just yelled at me. I don't know what happened. Must have said something I wasn't supposed to. Oh my goodness gracious! From Tuesday, the most actionable player on this list comes from Scott. So we'll start there.
Yes. Braxton Garrett, baby. How many times has he been the oh my goodness gracious player lately? Well, he made me say it again today because all Braxton Garrett did was strike out 11 in 5 2/3 innings, 15 swinging strikes, 9 on that slider. That's really taken off lately.
Yeah, but it was against the Pirates.
No, not this time. Not this time.
That's the joke.
That's what I think is most interesting about this. And look, the Reds lineup isn't great. They just traded Tommy Pham and Brandon Drury. It's better than the Pirates, but it's not great. But I think what's most encouraging about what Braxton Garrett's done over his last 4 starts is that it was 2 in a row against the Pirates. It was 2 in a row against the Reds. They got back-to-back looks at him and still couldn't do anything with it. I know the Reds scored 5 runs off in the first of the 2 starts against them, but 4 were in the first inning, and he still looked pretty dominant otherwise. So I give him, I treat that as like that was a sign that elevated my perception of Braxton Garrett, even if the end result wasn't great. And this one does further. I'd like to see him face a really good lineup and see what happens. And of course, I'm not going to judge completely on the first time that happens if he has a bad start, but he continues to trend the right way. And, at this point, he probably needs to be rostered everywhere.
Well, Scott, ask and ye shall receive, because we're far out from next week. I get that. But an early forecast has Braxton Garrett starting 2 games next week against the Phillies and the Braves. So that would be quite the test for him.
Yeah, good test. And I'd use him for the 2-start week. I would.
He is 67% rostered. Again, that is Braxton Garrett. over a strikeout per inning this season, 12.7% swinging strike rate entering Tuesday's action, and that number is only going to go up. So he's looked very good recently. And a few other names that emerged on the waiver wire here on Tuesday. Cutter Crawford has now allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in 5 straight. He goes into Houston to face the Astros and gives up just 1 run over 6 innings with 6 strikeouts. He had 12 swinging strikes and lowers the ERA to 3.83. He is 24% rostered. And Cole Irvin now makes it 6 straight quality starts. He was at the Angels, 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. His ERA is down to 3.04.
He
Chris,
wasn't traded.
Yeah.
Cole Irvin wasn't traded. So he gets to continue to benefit from that park where he's had so much success, allowing just 1 home run all year.
I thought about exactly that while I was writing in, my notes for him is,
Yeah.
Normally you want your players to get as far away from Oakland as you possibly can. But in this case, Cole Irvin pitching in Oko, it's a much better place for him to pitch.
He was at the Angels this time for what it's worth, but also a big park and a terrible lineup, and delivered again.
Chris, how do you rank these 3? Braxton, Garrett, Cutter Crawford, Cole Irvin.
I would go Garrett, Crawford, Irvin. Irvin, I think he's a streamer at home, but I wouldn't have much faith, knowing this one was on the road, yes, but still, I don't think he's a particularly good pitcher, so I'm okay chasing upside with Garrett and Crawford. I don't think either of them has like huge upside, although I do like Garrett's a little more based on what we've seen from him over this nice little extended stretch now.
Scott, I think I know the answer to this question, but other people might not know. Jameson Taillon, another clunker here on Tuesday. His last 11 starts, 5.73 ERA, 12 home runs. So just over a home run per start during that stretch. He's still 93% rostered. Would you drop him for any of Braxton Garrett, Cutter Crawford, Cole Irvin?
I certainly would for Garrett and Irvin. I have Irvin ahead of Cutter Crawford pretty substantially. I mean, I did have Crawford as a 2-start sleeper this week, and it's nice that he came through against the tougher of those starts against the Astros. The next one is at Kansas City. But in the long run, I don't have a lot of confidence in him. I think he's just a space filler for the Red Sox right now. So I think I would still take Taillon over Cutter Crawford, but that is less about faith in Taillon than just lack of faith in Crawford.
All right.
I don't believe in Taillon. I would drop him for almost anybody.
Yeah, I think Taillon's absolutely in that space where just you can drop him for anyone that's got some upside, I think.
Yeah, and to clarify, like if I have it was Cutter Crawford this week. If next week there's some other obscure pitcher who I have as a 2-start sleeper and I just want to stream a guy, I'd be perfectly fine punting Taillon for the streamer option.
Scott, your mic is doing that weird thing again where it's not picking you up. So move around, get loose a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe I stick my chin over it, and it's such a directional microphone, that once I get past the uppermost point of it, it just loses me. So I sound fine now, right?
Good to
You
go.
sound great.
Yes.
Oh my goodness gracious for you, Chris. Who you got?
Kevin Gausman, who I know there's been some consternation. My faith has not really wavered, and I was happy to see that faith rewarded today because, he's gone through a bit of a rough patch of late, and the thing is with Kevin Gausman is the strikeouts and the walks have never stopped being excellent. He's had, I don't know if he's been the league leader in FIP through his most recent start, but he's been in that range. One of the best FIPs in baseball, even when things were going not so great. And I look at him and I look at the total package and I just see a pitcher who's got great strikeout numbers, incredible control. He's going to get hit hard occasionally, and it's going to lead to some, frustrating stretches. Maybe he's like a slightly better Shane Bieber at this point, but I still think Kevin Gausman is an elite pitcher.
You are correct, Chris.
Top 12 guy.
Entering Tuesday's action, Kevin Gausman led all qualified starting pitchers with a 206 FIP for this
Now the
season.
XFIP and FIP assumes that all batted balls are equal, and they're not. We know that. It assumes that home runs happen at the same rate. It assumes all batted balls are equal. I think it's the right way to put it. And they're not. Kevin Gausman gets hit hard. He's got a 395 expected WOBA on contact. That's right around where his career rate is. So, he does get hit pretty hard, but he's also so good at avoiding walks and getting strikeouts that I think he's still very, very good, even though there have been some rough patches at times.
I think the better metric to use to judge Kevin Gausman might be expected ERA, according to StatCast, because it factors in quality of contact. And entering Tuesday, Kevin Gausman's xERA was 3.62. So again, he is great. There's no doubt about it. His K- walk rate is amazing, but he does allow a decent amount of hard contact, and you see it there in his expected ERA this season. He also leads all qualified starting pitchers in BABIP, 385.
That's the big thing is even if you're bad at suppressing hard contact, a 385 BABIP. I mean, I think we talked about this the last time
it's just a lucky. Frank,
you can pitch poorly and still have bad luck, or you can have bad skills and still have bad luck. And that's what's happening with Kevin Gausman is even if you think he is, going to have a bad BABIP, his 385 is nearly 50 points higher than the number 3 pitcher in BABIP, which is Carlos Carrasco at 337. So even if Kevin Gausman was 98th percentile bad in BABIP, you're talking about a 50-point difference in the rate of balls in play falling for hits. So, yeah, I think the worst stretches of Kevin Gausman career or season have been largely bad luck, and I think he's still very, very good.
His BABIP is higher than Patrick Corbin's. So just to put that in perspective, it's no matter how much hard contact you give up, you should not be in the same category as Patrick Corbin. If you're Kevin Gausman, that is. Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious, for me, I got to be a little bit negative. I'm sorry, guys. I got to bring us down a little bit. Kyle Tucker, he's going through it right now. He went 0 for 3. Just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on where he's at. His overall batting average is down to 238 now for the season, and his last 21 games, a 154 batting average, still has 3 homers and 2 steals, so kind of chipping in some power and speed. His BABIP is 155 during that time. A 53% fly ball rate seems might be selling out a little bit too much, putting the ball in the air. But Scott, what do you think about these recent struggles for Kyle Tucker?
Well, I hadn't noticed until you brought it up. We just did a redraft of the first 2 rounds, a month ago? And we all had him in our first round. So we weren't thinking of him. Well, I mean, I guess in that time, his batting average has dropped about 25 points. So, yeah, everything's kind of down. Still making as much contact as usual. Average exit velocity down to 2.5 miles per hour from last year. Hard hit rate down 10 percentage points. I don't think he just forgot how to play baseball. I wonder if he is pressing or maybe he's playing through something that we just haven't heard about. I don't know. I think in shallower leagues, you could give some thought to sitting him for a hot hand play right now at this critical time where you can't afford to, you have to avoid losing at all costs, most likely. But I wouldn't be dumping him. And obviously in 5 outfielder leagues, it's probably not worth sitting him given what you'd be putting in the lineup instead.
Oddly enough, he struggled against lefties this year as a left-handed batter, but he was great against them last season. A 286 batting average, 910 OPS against lefties in 2021 for Kyle Tucker. So I know it takes, I forgot what it's like 1,000 plate appearances.
Yeah, several seasons.
Yeah, so it takes a long time to for that to normalize your splits against left-handed pitching. So,
but that's true both ways. If you're good for 4 years and you're bad for 1 year, you may not necessarily be able to say for sure that player's good, but it also means you should be very skeptical that they're struggling. And right now, he's got a 15% strikeout rate against lefties. He still has a 180-ish ISO. He has a 219 BABIP against them. I don't really think Kyle Tucker's struggling against lefties. I think he's got a 241 BABIP right now. And it's possible that there's an explanation for that that's not just, blank happens. He is a left-handed hitter. his sprint speed has collapsed. He's down to 33rd percentile in sprint speed, or 35th percentile in sprint speed, which is shockingly low for a guy with 16 stolen bases. It makes me wonder if, there's something going on there. He did miss a couple of games with a foot injury at the end of May, but then he had a 958 OPS in June. That was his best month of the season by far. So I don't actually know if that's a good explanation. But yeah, it's possible that he's like being hurt by the shift more this season. His quality of contact is down. If you look at his expected WOBA over the past 100 plate appearances, Baseball Savant has like a rolling average for expected WOBA. Over the last 100 plate appearances, it's below average now. It's collapsed. And the funny thing is, it's got 50, 100, 250 plate appearances. 50 plate appearances, last 50 plate appearances, his expected WOBA is below average. Last 100 plate appearances, below average. Last 250 plate appearances, right in line with where it's been most of his career. So it's kind of like, a little arbitrary sample size there, depending on where you cut it off. I tend to think it's nothing, and that he'll figure it out. And I think it's just one of those things that happens in a baseball season,
which we have talked about many times. There are, peaks and valleys for even the best players in baseball. And I would consider Kyle Tucker, not the best, but he's, inside the top, 20 hitters, 15 hitters in the game. So I do think that he will bounce back, assuming that he's healthy and not dealing with anything. The other one I wanted to mention, Corbin Burns had a career high 5 walks against the Pirates. Really? 5 1/3, 4 runs allowed, did have the 5 walks, 6 strikeouts in this start. And he's struggling a bit with his control. Last 11 starts, 3.5 walks per 9, which is something early in his career he dealt with. But the past couple of years where, he's been this Cy Young caliber pitcher, the walks haven't been an issue. So, Scott, does this concern you at all for Corbin Burns?
I would say no. No. He walked none in 6 innings in his previous start.
And what do you have, like 12 strikeouts or something like that? Too?
11, yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, I mean, a 5 walk outing is obviously going to raise your BB per 9 rate quite a bit over how long was the sample again?
So it was 11 starts, but even before
starts.
Tuesday, it was 3 walks per 9 over his last 10.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Nah, it doesn't really concern me.
All right. If you are looking for trade reactions, we will not be talking about any trades on today's podcast, but because we did a bunch of emergency podcasts. So if you are looking for those, Juan Soto trade reaction, we did a whole trade deadline recap of all the deals, kind of catching up. Tyler Mahle, Whit Merrifield, the closer movements.
The ones that weren't already covered by previous emergency podcasts.
Right. Yeah. So if you're looking for any kind of trade content, it's there. Just you got to go back and listen to our
before we move on, I do want to say, rest in peace, Vin Scully.
Yeah, absolutely.
That hurts. That was, man, there aren't a lot of there. I don't know if there's a single broadcaster otherwise who I've tuned into games just to have him on. Like there's been a lot of times where I've just thrown a Dodgers game on late at night while I was in bed just to like have Vin Scully on in the background. So. That just an absolute legend, the best there ever was. Rest in peace.
For sure. Yeah, I had that in the news and notes for later on. But yeah, very unfortunate news. 94 years old, 67 years broadcasting baseball games with the Dodgers, of course.
Incredible.
Amazing career, amazing voice. Love to listen to him. So yes, rest in peace. It's one of the best in Vin Scully. What else did I have? Well, I guess that's kind of a weird but natural transition to talk about the Dodgers, who promoted Miguel Vargas on Tuesday as Justin Turner was placed on the IL dealing with that abdominal injury, and the IL placement was retroactive to July 30th. So kind of seems like Justin Turner could be back soon. And Scott's recent midseason top 30 prospects, Miguel Vargas ranked 7th on that list and having a very successful season in the minors. 291 batting average, 15 homers, 12 steals, and 879 OPS in 94 games. Really good plate discipline, 12% walk rate, 14.6% strikeout rate. The problem, Scott, we just don't know if he's going to stick around. So Vargas, 29% rostered. What are you thinking?
Yeah, and I really don't know. I don't know how closely it's tied to Justin Turner's IL stint. They also haven't officially added Joey Gallo to the roster yet. So that's going to impact things further. Miguel Vargas wasn't in the lineup for his first game. Hanser Alberto got the start at third base because, of course, anytime you have a chance to start Hanser Alberto, you got to do it. On the other hand, I don't believe Miguel Vargas was on the 40-man roster prior to this promotion. So they made a point to put him on, which would lead you to believe maybe, maybe they just figured, well, he's going to be around at some point this year. But I don't know that this is necessarily going to be the time to get him in the lineup consistently. It seems like they would have to be willing to bench Justin Turner and or Max Muncy. Both of whom deserve to be benched, but so far they haven't made a move to do that. So I just don't know. Miguel Vargas, basically from the time Vinny Pasquantino was called up, has been the top prospect to stash. So, now that he's actually in a major league uniform, it's not a bad idea to pick him up. His hit tool, like just the way people talk about him as a hitter in the minor leagues, like they act like they've never seen a minor league hitter like that before, which is probably exaggeration. But at the same time, like the guy can really hit. And, I haven't had him 7th in my midseason rankings, as you point out, Frank. I think the consensus prospect rankings, if you're not looking at fantasy specific necessarily, is more like 25 to 30. But I think a lot of that's just because they don't feel confident he's going to stick at third base. And, sometimes prospect stock takes too much of a hit for things like that. I think Miguel Vargas is going to be a monster when he is around for good. I'm just not confident that now is that time.
All right, so not a must add, it sounds like, but if you have a roster spot, if you have, let's say, a veteran on your bench who you just kind of have there for depth to plug in, I would say drop that player for Miguel Vargas and let's see where this goes. Because
if you have if you have a roster spot you can play with in any sort of way, I'm trying to think of.
Chris, you are muted. I
What
see you.
the
If you had Alex Kirilloff placed on the IL, was what I said.
There you
So
go.
I just looked at one league, and that's the move I made.
Yeah, I am, as we talked about when the wrist injury came up again, I am not confident about Kirilloff's prospects for the rest of the season. So I would be willing to dump him for Vargas. About the shallowest leagues I play in are 250 players rostered, and I think even in most of those, I'm sure even in a couple of them, I'm already stashing Vargas. So, yeah, I think most people could find a way to get him on their roster and just see what happens.
All right, let's get back over to the pitching side of things. A couple other waiver wire pitchers in deeper leagues. Jose Suarez with the Angels, another solid outing. He was up against the Oakland A's, 5 innings, 1 unearned run, 5 strikeouts, and slider velocity remains up in this start. If you remember, last time out, he threw a slider something like 40% of the time. He didn't throw it as much in this one. He used it 26%, but that usage is still up from earlier in the season. So kind of intrigued by this slider that Jose Suarez is throwing. Good swinging strike rate this year at 12%. He's only 4% rostered. A couple other names here. Jordan Lyles, a quality start at the Rangers, 6 1/3, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 17 swinging strikes. Really nice there. And Graham Ashcraft nearly goes the distance at the Marlins, 5 1/3, 1 unearned run there, 3 strikeouts against them. Chris, what do you think about this group in deeper leagues? Jose Suarez, Jordan Lyles, Graham Ashcraft.
How many starts do you think there have been this season where a pitcher had as many swinging strikes as strikeouts? Because that's what Graham Ashcraft did today.
Adam Wainwright does that a lot, I've noticed.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. He gets a ton of called strikes. This was against the Marlins, so I think you can go ahead and Graham Ashcraft. There are things about him that are interesting, but he does not get enough whiffs to get me excited. Suarez, I don't know. His minor league numbers are pretty bad once he got to AAA. Like he was good in the low minors, but it was small samples. He's got a 4.66 ERA. Playing at Salt Lake, that's another one of those offensive environments that is very, very difficult for pitchers. But even so, I haven't seen a ton to get excited about with Jose Suarez. So, 5 strikeouts and 5 innings against the A's, that doesn't really excite me either. So 15-team leagues, even there, I think is pretty fringy.
I was going to say, in 15 teamers, if you're desperate for pitching, I might take a shot on Suarez with this new pitch mix, but 12 team standard leagues, it's not happening yet. I throw him on the scout team there and let's see where it goes. Scott, anything with this pitcher? Corey Abbott was solid in his first national start. He was opposing Jacob deGrom. He went 5 shutout, 2 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts, had 9 swinging strikes on 76 pitches, and he's had an okay minor league career. 3.75 ERA, 1.27 WHIP. A good amount of strikeouts, 485 strikeouts over 406 innings pitched. He's only 1% rostered, only RP eligible. What do you think? Anything here? Corey Abbott?
Not yet, but he did have, but he's pitched a little. He's made 3 relief appearances this year prior to this start, and so combined major and minor league numbers this year, Corey a 16% swinging strike rate, which is very good. But all the other numbers this year, combined majors and minors, aren't so good. Better recently. I don't know. Let's see him do this a few more times, and then we could talk.
Well, I picked him up in the Scott White Dynasty League, 2014 points league. So
it's a 24-team league where pitching is precious, so that makes sense for that format. But I'm sure for 99% of our listeners, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I hope he turns into something for my own sake. Before we hit the break, just want to remind everyone, wherever you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, if you can help us out with a 5-star rating, that would be much appreciated. Of course, on Apple, you can also leave a question or a Team Name Tuesday in the review. But again, if you listen on Spotify, it's like a newer feature the past year or so. 5-star rating there really goes a long way and helps us out. We do appreciate it. Let's take a break and we'll return right after this. The news and notes. Orioles manager Brandon Hyde said that Felix Bautista, Cionel Perez, and Dylan Tate are all candidates to close moving forward.
Well,
makes it seem like a committee. I will point out Felix Bautista recorded the final out in the 9th inning here on.
Yeah, and I mean, he did. Okay, so the exact quote I saw from Brandon Hyde was, I think Bautista, when he's going out in the 8th inning or 9th inning at times, he's shown the mentality to close, basically is what he was talking about. And I think he's going to get a shot. He did acknowledge that maybe Cionel Perez could factor if him being a lefty could factor if the matchups were right. But like, I got the impression from the quote and from the way the article was written on MLB.com that like Felix Bautista is the obvious heir to the role.
How many teams in baseball at this point, if they don't have like a capital C closer, will come out and say, we have a closer? None?
Almost none. You'll almost never hear that.
Like if you have Kenley Jansen or one of those guys, they'll say, yeah, he's our closer. But other than that, like very few teams actually come out and say, yes, we're only going to use one guy as our closer. Even when there's obvious examples. So I think Felix Bautista is going to be the closer.
Me too.
All right, fair enough. And he is widely available to, I want to say,
the guy making the decision doesn't know anything.
26% rostered is Felix Bautista. So, yes, very interested in him if you do need saves.
So the numbers, the numbers, a 1.66 ERA, 0.88 WHIP, 11.6 K per 9. Like, he was arguably better than Jorge Lopez, and Jorge Lopez was amazing.
Yeah, he has been an elite reliever this season. There's no doubt about it. That is Felix Bautista. Rafael Devers was reinstated on Tuesday as expected. He went 2 for 4 with his 23rd home run. Julio Rodriguez is making good progress with both of his injured wrists, though he has not swung a bat yet. So it seems unlikely that he will be activated in the minimum amount of time. Just my opinion. Luis Robert was reinstated on Tuesday, but was not in the starting lineup. Kind of a weird situation. He's been dealing with like lightheadedness, dizziness. There's no exact diagnosis that I've seen with Luis Robert, but should be back in the lineup on Wednesday. Freddie Peralta will rejoin the Brewers on Wednesday and start against the Pirates. So if you play in a daily lineup league, make sure to get him back in there. John Gray, this one hurts, placed on the IL with a strained left oblique and expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. So that brings us right up to the end of the season. Just a brutal loss.
Yep,
John
that's
Gray.
the season for fantasy.
Yeah. Tarek Skubal was diagnosed with left forearm inflammation and is expected to miss at least one turn through the Tigers' rotation. Danny Jimenez is back from the IL and should work back into the closer's role. That's our speculation. Of course, AJ Puck and Zach Jackson are options as well, but Jimenez was pretty good earlier on in the season. Gene Segura likely to return from the 60-day IL on Thursday. Alex Kirilloff, as we mentioned, was placed on the IL with that lingering wrist injury and doesn't look good, unfortunately, for our guy, Alex Kirilloff. Let's get into some waiver wire hitters from Tuesday. Rank these multi-position eligible bats. Adam Frazier went 2 for 3 with 2 walks, 2 runs, an RBI, and his 6th stolen base. And he's batting .345 with 3 steals over his last 15 games. Jorge Mateo went 2 for 5 with a double dong. He added 5 RBI. He now has 10 homers and 25 steals on the season. And Chris, I know you recently made the comp to Adalberto Mondesi, right? Like, if Mateo's name was Adalberto Mondesi, he would be rostered everywhere, which is just kind of an interesting exercise to do. And then Ha-Sung Kim had a pretty massive game in game 1 of their doubleheader. He went 4 for 5 with a double, triple, 2 RBI, 2 runs scored. He is batting .312 over his last 30 games. I just don't know how much he's going to play moving forward. Brandon Drury traded to the Padres. Fernando Tatis returning soon. So that kind of sucks for Ha-Sung Kim. Chris, how would you rank these 3 multi-position bats? Adam Frazier, Mateo, Ha-Sung Kim.
I think in points it'd be Frazier, Mateo, Kim. In Roto it'd be Mateo, Frazier, Kim. And I just want to say, I don't know if you were watching the game yesterday, Frank, but watching Adam Frazier against Aroldis Chapman, I don't know, maybe it was just like how different their heights are. Aroldis Chapman's so big. Adam Frazier, he's listed at 5'10". Looking at that plate appearance last night, I mean, I say I'm 5'10". I'm 5'9 3/4, you know? He looked like he was like 5'8".
Yeah.
That was all I thought about when I saw that.
That's basically me up there batting against Aroldis Chapman, right? Like, that's what it would look like. Adam Frazier.
That's kind of what it looked like, yeah.
I'm not a lefty, though, unfortunately. I like to tell myself I'm a switch hitter, but it doesn't really work out that way often.
I do want to mention for Jorge Mateo, who I think is a distant number 1 in categories because of the steals potential.
Yeah.
So I have in his last 31 games, he's hitting .268 with 6 homers, 6 steals, an OPS around .850. His strikeout rate, which is like 30% for the season, is 25% during that rate. During that span of time, I don't see anything that jumps out at me. It just seems like he's gotten a little better at everything during that stretch. The strikeout rate being down a little, the exit velocity's up a little, the hard hit rate's up a little. But this is kind of what we dreamed Jorge Mateo could be when we heard he was going to be the Orioles starting shortstop. And I don't know if he can sustain it, but he's sustained it for about a month's time. And I think anywhere, like, how rostered is he?
41%.
Yeah, so he's, that probably covers all Roto leagues, but if he happens to be available in a Roto league, then it's time to not only add him, but make sure he's in your lineup so he can impact your steals category.
Yeah, Scott, you mentioned his last 31 games. I had his last 17 written down here. He's batting .323 his last 17 games, 21% strikeout rate. So much more manageable. I picked him up in Tout Wars this past weekend. That's a head-to-head points league, but it's Roto-sized lineup. So it's middle infielder, corner, 5 outfielders. His position eligibility is just gold. So I get that it's not his best format, but I picked him up and I'm reaping the rewards. I'm good with it.
I don't think he's that versatile in CBS leagues.
He has shortstop and outfield.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in Tout Wars, I forget the website. I think on Roto. It's a great website, by the way. I think he has like second, third, shortstop, outfield. So it's really, really useful there.
Okay.
Which catcher do you prefer of these two? Mentioned them a lot recently. But, in a one catcher league, maybe you're just kind of riding the hot hand. Carson Kelly went 3 for 4 with his 6th home run. In 32 games since returning from the IL, he's batting .295. All 6 of those homers during this time, a 16% strikeout rate. So he's been great, 33% rostered. And then Jose Trevino went 2 for 4 with his 10th home run, and that is his third homer over the last 2 games. He's kind of going on a little power binge here. He is 39% rostered. Pretty similar. Chris, who do you like more between Carson Kelly and Jose Trevino?
I'll go with Carson Kelly. You know, he's a little bit less of a, you know, a batting average drain. I think when things are going well, I guess it's not fair to say Jose Trevino is a batting average drain when he's hitting 260 this season, although I don't entirely buy that. But yeah, I would go with Carson Kelly.
And Kelly's probably barely batting 200 for the season, but he has been incredibly hot lately.
Much
and we've
better,
seen him throughout his career. Like, we've seen him have spans of a month or two where he looks like the best catcher in the world. And so it's nice to see after, you know, a miserable first 3 months from him. Part of that time he was injured, I think, but a good chunk of that time. But it's nice to see that he still has it in him. And yeah, I agree. Kelly's the guy to have of the two.
The disrespect to all-star Jose Trevino. I mean,
did you enjoy the Trevino to Trevino battery tonight?
Oh gosh, yeah.
How weird did Lou Trevino look without a beard?
Not good.
Yeah,
Not
it was
good
a weird,
at all.
Weird look.
Yep. Not a fan of that. Bring the beard.
That's how Frank will react if I ever shave my beard.
It's like those videos, Chris, you ever see of like the babies when their father shaves their...
So the problem is, speaking from experience, it's the summer. He works outside.
Yeah.
He's got a beard tan. You know, the summer's a bad time to shave your beard. If you're going to shave your beard, do it during the winter. That's my advice.
Rough go for the
Don't
beard.
get traded to the Yankees midseason if you've got a beard.
Yeah, it is a rough time for the trade deadline, right? I mean, yeah, it looks
Just
weird.
let people have beards.
Where to add any of these hitters, if anywhere? We'll start with Yuli Gurriel. I know playing time could go down with Trey Mancini coming over here, but I hadn't realized. Someone pointed out to me on Twitter that Yuli Gurriel has been hot recently, and that's exactly right. He went 2 for 4 here on Tuesday with his 8th stolen base. He was batting second in the Astros lineup. Last 21 games, .313 batting average, 8 doubles, 5 steals, 54% rostered. Scott, are you looking to add Yuli Gurriel anywhere if he was dropped in your leagues?
I did have him as a sleeper hitter for this week. I think I stuck him in at the last minute Sunday because somebody got hurt or something. So I like the Astros matchups this week. And yeah, he did win the AL batting title last year and has been, for most of his career, a reliable source of batting average. Has not been the case this year, and he's getting pretty old. So, you know, I don't know that a little bit of a hot streak here is going to have me, or should have people buying back into him en masse, but is it en masse or en masse?
I always say en masse, but
En masse.
I've also heard bona fide pronounced bona fide, so you never know with these things.
No way, really?
I've heard that too.
I've heard smart people say it that way, so I never say it that way because I'm not smart, but I've heard smart people say it.
Chris,
you never know with these adopted foreign language words.
Chris, you're the smartest guy I know. Like, why don't you give yourself...
That's a bad sign.
Go ahead, Scott.
Where do you stand on an historic versus a historic?
It's an historic, but it makes you sound pretentious.
Yeah.
I've always heard you say "an" if it makes a vowel, if the next word makes a vowel sound, which historic doesn't. Honor does. An honor. You wouldn't say a honor. But I think a historic is.
You would say an ahistoric statement, though.
An ahistoric, yeah, because that does make a vowel sound at the start. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so
I cringe every time I hear an historic.
I don't think we're that interested in Yuli Gurriel, I think is the takeaway.
Yeah,
how stunning is 8 stolen bases for him, though?
Yeah, it's already a career
6
high.
in his previous 3 seasons.
Yeah. So it already surpasses his career high. So interesting. I mean, we've seen this before when he's not a slugger, but when a hitter can't contribute power, they try to contribute other ways. And I guess this is how Yuli Gurriel is doing it. Eddie Rosario on Tuesday went 3 for 5 with a double, 5 RBI, pretty massive game, 4 hard hit balls. The overall numbers are still very bad, not playing against lefties. He's 54% rostered. Chris, it's only one game, but are you looking to try and get out ahead of it here and maybe add Eddie Rosario if he was dropped anywhere?
I'm not super excited about it. There just haven't really been many signs of life. The interesting thing, I suppose, is that he's just even the strikeouts have been, a little higher than I thought. I thought he had been making decent contact, but his strikeout rate since coming back, entering today, was 25%, maybe a little higher. So, no, I don't really have much interest. Maybe this is the start, but he just hasn't really shown anything. He hasn't looked right.
All right, the last name up here is another one of your favorites, Chris. Luis Garcia, 2 for 4 with his 4th home run. His last 7 games, he's batting .370 with 2 homers during that time, 22% rostered. I understood why you liked him, earlier in the season. It hasn't really materialized yet. Like, there's still some interesting things under the hood, but what do you think about Luis Garcia? Have you kind of cooled your stance on him?
Yeah, he's definitely someone that I like, and I think there's a lot of potential there. But the overall expected stats are just okay. He's more in the lower end corner infielder range for me. I have him ranked 27th at shortstop. Shortstop's just
Middle infielder.
Crazy deep right now.
Yeah.
And so I can go almost 30 deep in terms of players who I think are worth rostering, but I don't think he's not a must roster in points leagues for sure, and even in a standard 12-team roto league, I think he's probably a bench guy.
Luis Garcia has now 4 home runs with the 2 he's hit in his last 7. He's at 4 and 200 at bats. You know how many walks he has?
3.
He has 2 walks.
2. Yeah.
Do you think the 4 home runs are bad? He's got half as many walks.
Yeah, like the underlying numbers are the skill set still looks pretty interesting because he makes a decent amount of contact and hits the ball pretty hard. But the approach I think is still probably holding him back a little bit.
I'm not writing him off for the rest of his career. That wasn't meant as a snide comment. I mean,
he's still very young too.
Yeah, but I don't think I just dropped him in a bunch of my leagues, some deeper leagues where I'd been stashing him away because of the middle infield eligibility. Maybe it was bad timing since he's kind of getting hot right now, but ultimately I decided he's just not ready yet.
Yeah, it's really hard to be successful with that approach.
Yeah.
And Michael Harris is the exception.
The name, when else will we find 3 players with the same name that are all semi-fantasy relevant at the same time, right? So we've got Washington Nationals, Garcia, Houston Astros, Garcia, and then the Padres, which would have been their closer if it wasn't for a guy named Josh Hader getting traded to their team. Let's move over to some pitching standouts from Tuesday's action. Spencer Strider. How are we only talking about Spencer Strider now? Posted a career high 13 strikeouts against the Phillies. Scott, he's not giving up that rotation spot. No matter what, he's got a firm grasp. He's holding on. He goes 6 2/3, 1 run, 13 strikeouts, 20 swinging strikes on 98 pitches. Slider velocity was up 2 miles per hour in this start. He now has 133 strikeouts in 87 innings pitched. Is 13.8 K per 9. Leads all pitchers with at least 80 innings pitched. He's awesome.
He is awesome. And I have, for a number of reasons, I'm feeling more confident that the Jake Odorizzi acquisition isn't going to result in Spencer Strider's return to the bullpen. Now, we don't know exactly how they're going to handle that for a couple weeks because Braves have a couple doubleheaders coming up. They're going to go 6-man rotation for the next couple turns. But they just acquired Raisel Iglesias, right? And who else did they have bolstered their bullpen so much. Oh, Kirby Yates. Kirby Yates is about to return from the IL, and he was, obviously up there with Hader in terms of closers before he had Tommy John surgery. So their bullpen is going to be so deep that it's hard to make the case that they need Strider in the bullpen. There's still the innings management standpoint I get, but Alex Anthopoulos during the game on Tuesday, they had him on in the second inning or something, interviewing him about trade deadline stuff. And he said there has been no thought about moving Strider back to the bullpen.
Yes.
And He also talked about innings limits and how they don't believe in them, which I kind of take that as GM speak. He says we take it start to start and see how it's going. Okay, so if it looks like a pitcher needs to be shut down, you will shut him down. But yeah, Strider, just based on where he is with the innings count this year and what he did last year, I think he should be able to navigate the rest of the season. And it doesn't sound like the Braves are interested in removing him from the rotation. If he keeps having 13 strikeout starts, why the heck would they? So, yeah, I feel pretty good about his chances of continuing to start going forward.
Here's some context for what Spencer Strider's done this season. Minimum 80 pitches in a season in Major League history. His 13.8 K per nine is now the 6th best rate ever, tied with Garrett Cole's 2019. Jacob DeGrom's 2021 is the only other one by a starter that's better. So you're talking like peak Dylan Betances, peak Brad Lidge, peak Eric Gagne, and peak Josh Hader are the only pitchers who've been better while throwing 80 innings in a season. This is pretty special stuff.
Awesome. And look, you might be skeptical because it's 2-pitch mix, but I've said this before. It's, when those 2 pitches are that good, just look at Jacob DeGrom. I don't think Spencer Strider is Jacob DeGrom, but he throws nearly 100 miles per hour with an 86, 87 mile per hour slider. So
it could have been, Matt Brash was the guy we were excited about. Remember, like the first 2 weeks of the season with a similar approach.
Oh yeah.
And so it does just go to show you that the margin for error is probably pretty slim there with this kind of approach. But Strider might have a better he definitely has a better fastball. He might have a better breaking ball than Matt Brash too.
The rest of the pitching standouts. Yu Darvish now has a quality start in 9 of his last 10 outings up against the Rockies. He goes 6 innings, 3 runs, 7 strikeouts with 16 swinging strikes. Drew Rasmussen, a strong start up against the Blue Jays, 6 innings, 1 run, 3 strikeouts there. Adam Wainwright with back-to-back 7-inning quality starts. He was up against the Cubs, goes 7 shutout with 4 strikeouts to 0 walks. And Christian Javier posts his first quality start since July 1st. Just been a little bit inefficient recently with the walks, so that's kind of limited his innings total. But he goes 6 innings, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts with 15 swinging strikes against the Red Sox. Chris, anything you'd like to add on Javier, Wainwright, Rasmussen, and Yu Darvish?
No, we've said it a few times, but I think with Darvish, it might just be you've just got to ride the wave with him, good and bad, because he has so many pitches that I think it might just take him longer than most pitchers to like get a sense for what's working and what isn't in any given season. And he's had these really high highs and these really low lows, but he always tends to figure it out. So I think it's just we need to keep that in mind. There's a lot of things. It's hard in the moment to remember these things, but I think with Yu Darvish, it's probably just worth remembering that when you draft him next season, you'll have to be patient at some point. There will be a point where you're frustrated by the Yu Darvish experience.
Who Darvish?
Soldier Boy.
I haven't played that one in a while, so thought I would bring it back up. The call to the bullpen. We've lost Chris. It's great. The call to the bullpen for the Nationals. Kyle Finnegan.
I forgot.
Yeah. I wanted to make a segment out of that soundbite, and I always say
I wouldn't be able to participate.
It's tough, man. It's tough. Some bullpen updates from Tuesday. Kyle Finnegan for the Nationals entered in the 7th inning with a 4-1 lead. Runners on 2nd and 3rd. He recorded 5 outs. The Nationals tacked on another run, and then Carl Edwards pitched in the 9th inning. Scott, this is the first time we've seen this, but maybe the Nationals view Finnegan as just their highest leverage reliever, and that's why he was used where he was.
Yeah, maybe. I would argue Carl Edwards is just better than Kyle Finnegan.
Sure.
And so maybe they're still playing around and trying to figure out what they want to do with that role now that Tanner Rainey's out of the mix. So something to keep an eye on.
For the Reds, Hunter Strickland, I guess, wasn't available. He pitched on Monday. Alexis Diaz recorded the final 2 outs for his 4th save of the season. Could have been a weird thing, like just who was warming up at the time. I know Graham Ashcraft started the 9th inning, so he just couldn't finish out the game. So Diaz came in there. For the Pirates, I saw some concern about this on Twitter. People were asking, what's up with David Bednar? Turns out that he's dealing with a lower back injury. He's been dealing with this for a while now, but it flared up on Tuesday, and that's why he wasn't available to close out the game. They had a 2-run lead. Will Crowe picked up his 3rd save of the season. Bednar has not pitched since last Friday, July 29th. So something to watch there. If he goes on the IL, it's probably some combination of like Yeri De Los Santos and Will Crowe picking up saves for the Pirates. The Diamondbacks, Mark Melancon was unavailable. Ian Kennedy picked up his 5th save of the season. For the Tigers, Gregory Soto picked up his 20th save. For the Red Sox, Tanner Houck was amazing. Recorded the final 5 outs for his 8th save of the season. And what do you know? We got an opportunity for the Angels the day that they trade Raisel Iglesias. We did the podcast earlier, Scott. We said Ryan Tepera, probably the closer. He's been the 8th inning guy. Ryan Tepera had not pitched since Sunday, so had a day off in between. He only threw 14 pitches. I would presume he was available, but they turned to Jose Quijada. That's spelled Quijada. Jose Quijada. And he picks up the save. It's his 2nd of the season. He's a left-handed pitcher. I don't know if this is a sign of things to come, but he was the first man up.
Yeah, and they don't really have anybody closer caliber in that bullpen, so it's easy for me to look at Quijada's ratios and say, this guy is not going to be the closer. I don't think we're going to have a clear idea who is the favorite for saves for a while for the Angels. And, it may be that no favorite emerges. I guess just by virtue of getting the first set. I don't know. I'd still probably treat Ryan Tepera as this favorite, but it's not an emphatic recommendation by any means.
Jose Quijada.
I do want to mention though for Tanner Houck. This was 2 saves in as many days, right?
That sounds right. And
he went all of July without getting a single save. So we kind of wondered if he was falling out of favor. Garrett Whitlock got a couple multi-inning saves during that stretch, and I think a couple other relievers got some saves as well. So, hopefully we have some assurance now that Houck is still the Red Sox closer.
Yes, it was indeed 2 saves in as many days for Tanner Houck. Jose Quijada, by the way, his numbers for the season: 3.15 ERA, 1.32 WHIP, up over 11 strikeouts per 9, but also nearly 6 walks per 9. So does have control issues. Gets a lot of swinging strikes, 15%. You do like that. So who knows? Maybe he's like a Jose Alvarado type closer here for the Angels. To stream or not to stream, we'll start with Wednesday. Yusei Kikuchi at the Rays, Kyle Bradish at the Rangers, Brady Singer at the White Sox, and Mike Minor at the Marlins.
Gonna go with Singer, and I'm not gonna go with any of the others.
Chris?
Minor really tests the
I was gonna
start
say,
everyone against the Marlins.
It really
especially left-handers, right?
I would go with him not being good. So I would avoid it, but I don't know. Like, he's not good. He's bad.
Yes.
And so, man, he's got a 5.40 ERA over the last 3 seasons. That's really testing it. You know what? I'll say stream him against the Marlins.
All right.
In a deep league.
I thought you'd go with Kikuchi over him. But
I do. Like, Kikuchi looked good in his most recent start, and they were talking about him figuring some stuff out mechanically, so I want to keep an eye on him, but I wouldn't necessarily trust him yet.
All right, for Thursday, Jacob Junis versus the Dodgers, Jansen Junk versus the A's, Bailey Falter versus the Nationals, Dakota Hudson versus the Cubs, and Johnny Cueto at the Rangers.
I guess, Jansen Junk did look good last time out against the Royals, I believe it was. I don't see a lot in the profile to get excited about there, but he's going against Oakland. It might go okay. You could continue to ride the Johnny Cueto thing and just trust that it keeps going, even though it's hard to understand why he's had so much success. Rangers are an okay matchup. I think either of those is... I like them more than all the guys going Wednesday except for Singer. I'll say that.
I think that's fair. So we can rank them: Singer, Cueto, Jansen Junk if you need.
Yeah, my contribution is that Bailey Falter's name is more fitting to what he's likely to do than Jansen Junk's is.
I
Falter-
follow you.
Falter versus Junk. Actually, I don't know if Falter's even going to make that start because I know they traded for Syndergaard, but
True.
hopefully he does because the Nationals should be a very, very good matchup for any pitchers moving forward. We're going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thank you all for listening and watching Fantasy Baseball today. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.